All right. Brian's in the house, shizzle. Greetings,
Yeah.
Brian. Holla, holla. And OX Mackey's in the house, shizzle for dizzle. Holla, holla. All right, guys. Great. So let's get hopping and rolling. Welcome, everyone. Today is August 10th, and thank you so much for those who are with us today. We have lots of folks from LayerZero signing on. We have lots of folks from Sushi Community signing on. We also have folks from the Cross Chain Coalition, as well as folks from Paloma. And so we're going to spend the next 30 minutes going fast and furious and some exciting news in the cross-chain space. So why don't we get started and introduce ourselves. Welcome. My name is Tarek Lewis, co-founder founder of Volume. And also Volume is the founder of the Cross-Chain Coalition. And so Volume is also a sponsor of the Cross-Chain Coalition. Cross-Chain Coalition, the mission is to expand awareness of cross-chain communications and cross-chain development. We want to drive the future of crypto forward. It's kind of funny. We say that when it comes to the future, you're not going to be a blockchain developer. You'll be an omni-chain developer or a cross-chain developer. How you like that, Brian? Was that okay?
Love it.
That's right. And also, we want to thank our sponsors, mainly the team over at Curve and the team over at Paloma for helping us make sure that we can pull these together. So glad to have everyone with us. And today we have the co-founder of LayerZero, Brian Pellegrino, and also mentor for sushi and one of my greatest heroes, OX Maki. I've watched and followed him on Twitter for so many years. They feel like crypto decades, and seen what he has done to make sushi really amazing ever since the days of Head Chef when I sat there and watched history being made. So I want to welcome you both and would love a brief introduction from you both just to get us oriented. Brian, would you kick us off?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm Brian. I'm one of three founders and CEO of LayerZero Labs.
All right. Welcome, Brian. And OX Maki, who are you and what are you doing these days?
Yeah, so anonymous contributor to DeFi, and right now I'm actually helping at LayerZero and so on. Previously, I was like one of the co-founder of SushiSwap, which is
Yep.
one of the first community-led AMM out there.
Awesome, awesome. And congratulations on your new role in helping out over at LayerZero. So let's get started. The reason why we thought this was going to be such an exciting AMA was we were looking at sushis talking about cross-chain swaps with LayerZero. And we thought that it's just huge news. I think this is maybe the only major exchange that has cross-chain swaps across many different blockchains, maybe leading the pack. So I would call this maybe the number one cross-chain, truly cross-chain, multi-chain DEX experience that we've had and we've played with. I would love to share with the community how the story came about. How did the LayerZero and Sushi partnership happen? And you could tell us about what is the design and what's working and what is these multi-chain swaps, because I think they're huge and I think the world needs to know. So I don't know who wants to start first, but we would
Maybe
love to
maybe I
hear
can
about it.
start. Maybe I can start a little bit. Around September last year, I was actually researching for sushi where we could be heading towards kind of a cross-chain DEX where we didn't have like liquidity like siloed, I would say, or
Right.
separated. That was like a very big pain point because we had like such a massive presence on mainnet and Polygon, but we were falling short on our deployments, and this was not good for the user because that means, well, like lots of slippage, a very limited like variety of coins, and so on and so on. Even just transferring left and right, you had to leave sushi. You had to basically like find out, okay, which bridge can I use, which one can I trust, am
Yeah.
I gonna get like good execution, and so on. So I started doing research. That's how I kind of bumped into basically like Axelar. I invested. I bumped into Socket. I invested. I bumped into like AnySwap, a bunch of other. Some of them were good. Some of them were very bad. And from there, like I actually like 1 month after kind of starting this whole kind of journey, I met Raz and I met Primo, which is here today. And they were basically like really what I was looking for from a quote unquote like user standpoint. I was looking for something that was not wrapped asset. which is, you know, like a very big quote unquote like flaw in my opinion, or, you know, like a risk from a security standpoint. And I was looking for something that could basically like unify, or, you know, like omni chain kind of execute all of this. So we start to talk. We start about like talking about like the drawback between kind of what they've been building and so on. And I got like extremely passionate, and I realized like, well, these guys are building like exactly what we're looking for at Sushi,
Yep.
but they were not live yet. So it was like, how can I say? I could see it coming in front of my eyes. I was like, well, like the
Yep.
solution is right there, but you know they need maybe like 1, 2, 3 months or so. And at this point, I was already kind of you know, transitioning out of Sushi at that point, like, you know, a month later. And I was like, well, like, can I help? And can we make this happen? And I basically like dropped everything I was doing on this side, like, you know, angel investing and so on, to basically like join this team. And they have been crushing it so far. And I mean, right now it is still like a transitioning kind of moment where, you know, like,
Yeah.
right now it is not like the validators are not able to be run by everyone, but the moment this is going to be happening,
Yeah.
I think people are kind of going to be shook. But anyway, that's kind of how it came to be
Yep.
for Sushi and for me in particular.
Awesome. And I think, with that in mind, let's go a layer deeper to talk a little bit about the architecture. So the need is here. You're correct. And slippage is a problem. Presence, making sure Sushi was present on every chain in which liquidity was growing, definitely a need. How does this work under the hood? Primo, can you give us a little walkthrough on the architecture, given how it all pulls together in this particular use case?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of different ways to basically create a cross-chain swap architecture. One is through pure messaging, and another is through taking sort of existing LP constructs and sort of retrofitting them. Say, how do we have all these pools of Sushi LP that live across all these different chains? How do we make them play nice? How do we give the user an experience that's actually functional? So Stargate is what Sushi's leveraging for part of this inventory problem, right? So the big problem with the DEX is across chains is even if you have equivalent pairs like a medium asset. Let's say you have ETH to USDC pair on chain A, and you have like USDC to Matic pair on chain B. So you swap your ETH to USDC. Great, you have USDC now, and like you want to buy Matic on the other chain, but you don't. You have your USDC on Ethereum chain. You don't have it on Polygon, right? So you need this this intermediary step of being able to like abstract away this inventory. Basically say, hey, my USDC on Ethereum is the same as Polygon, and abstract this step of moving that inventory away from the user. So that's kind of like what Stargate does. Is now across all of these chains, you can sort of abstract away this liquidity transfer portion. And this is really common flow for yield aggregators. You're unstaking here. You don't have inventory on the other chain to stake it, DEX, all of this. And so what Sushi is doing is basically taking this routing problem that happens on a single chain and applying it across both chains. So you have, asset A on Ethereum or on whatever chain, and you want to go to like asset B on whatever chain. The goal is find out the route. If you're, already have your stable or USDC there, amazing. You can just jump over. If you, have a native pair that gets you right there, fine. So I think there's like a bunch of different ways that they can do it, but that's functionally what's happening is, hey, we're going to use Stargate to like abstract away the inventory, and then you're going to execute best swap on Sushi. And all of that happens, like what some of the big parts of this was what that did for the Sushi UI. So like directly in Sushi, you are on your source chain. You only sign one transaction. You don't need to have destination gas. So in the example of going like ETH to Polygon, you don't need to have Matic. You're automatically going to get some extra Matic when you land over there anyways. And now it allows them to basically, as Sarang just mentioned on the AMA we did earlier this week, their Sushi 2.0 UI is going to be everything on one page. So all your yield farms, all of your everything you want to look at from all chains, all in one single UI with that full layer of abstraction. Where the user doesn't need to necessarily know about bridging or the nuance between all of these different things. They can just focus on best execution, best rate, etc. So it's more towards that abstraction layer that I think is super exciting.
And that's awesome. And thank you for that. And we at the Cross-Chain Coalition, I think people need to know this because this is very amazing. One of the things you brought up was you didn't need destination gas. So that sounds like magic. How is it possible that you won't need destination gas on, say, cross-chaining to Phantom, where Phantom occasionally gas prices, sort of streak into some of the most into the atmosphere at times of high usage? How do you deliver on that guarantee that you don't need to cover that destination gas?
Yeah, so that was one of the big things we knew we needed from day one to be able to actually allow devs to make like a real cohesive user experience. And so one of the things, it's a module right now that basically is provided by the relayer. Any relayer is going to be able to use it eventually. But really, it just does this layer of gas abstraction where what the relayer is doing is it's quoting you units of Phantom in this case. The price of Phantom in units of Matic if you're coming from Polygon, right? And so
Right.
on chain, on source contract, totally atomically, the exact price ahead of time. And the relayer is updating this quote as price between the two assets moves or gas price spikes on an individual chain or any of that. And as soon as the relayer has accepted that, so as soon as you commit your transaction on source, that rate is locked. There's nothing, if they wanted to not deliver that transaction, they would basically need to shut down operation of a relayer forever. Everything is non-sorter enforced. They can't just like filter out a one and say, I got a bad, gas quote on this one, I'm not going to submit it. So usually the relayer is quote some small spread to account for vol, maybe a couple percent on the destination gas. So 1, 2, 3%. But they're guaranteeing to submit that no matter what happens. So even if gas spikes up, if whatever happens on that side, you will always get the execution. And that's played out in real time many, many, many times. But yeah, right. I think that's like a fundamental thing that applications needed is to not force every application to manage pools of native gas on every single chain. Like that should be abstracted away to some external part of your contract who does that for you.
Right. So that's awesome. So to reflect, and this is innovation that is really, I think, just amazing and great to share. It's really the relayers in the LayerZero model that take on sort of the gas estimation risk at the source chain. So when they commit, they're essentially saying, listen, we as relayers are good enough to do the job, to look ahead, forecast what gas might be on the target chain. You pay us in the source chain denom, and you're all good to go. And hey, this promise is delivered because, once we lock it in and accept it, your message will get delivered, guaranteed. And I think, and my question is it so really relayers are the ones who have become really good at gas cost management in the LayerZero model?
Yep, that's exactly right. And even,
awesome.
As more and more relayers come online, not every relayer will even want to manage that explicit component. And so we're actually going to break that out to a module that relayers can then subscribe to.
Got it. And when we think about now that we're looking at this model and SushiSwap, what could you give us a sense of the universe? How many chains now can SushiSwap essentially use Stargate to access cross-chain swaps? Like how big? Before it was, OX Market was like, hey, you were on Polygon and then we were on ETH mainnet, and now we're in the Stargate world. How big is that world? What's it how fast is it growing? Can you give us some sense of that, like that reach and that power?
Yeah. So we are actually the ones playing catch up here. Sushi has done an amazing job. They're on, 16 chains or maybe more at this point. Stargate is on 7 chains. LayerZero is on 13 chains and 17 testnets. We will be on our first non-EVM chains very shortly. So that's coming up soon. And we'll be on a whole slew more EVMs within, the very, very near future. So we're playing catch up. The current number is 7, but I would imagine that's 12 to 15 within the next few months.
Oh, that's awesome. And just and we expect that they will be, we always say, let the chains bloom. So I'm quite confident it is your view that there will be more chains. There will be more connections. And as a result, definitely more places where Stargate and LayerZero and of course Sushi will be present. Yes, that was how we should say it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that's very clear now.
Awesome. Okay, so getting back to cross-chain coalition, we have about 3,000 members in a cross-chain coalition. Everybody, what we're trying to deliver on the promise to members is to, figure out how to get involved and how to take advantage of this technology. So maybe some questions for both of you, and from both sides. How can cross-chain devs take advantage of, hey, here's now Sushi with the additional reach of Stargate and LayerZero, and then how can cross-chain developers think about, hey, here's how to come in and take advantage of LayerZero and Stargate to do what Sushi did? Can we talk to both sides?
Yep. Yeah, I'll start on our side. The goal ideally is that it's always as easy as possible. So Sarang from Sushi said he went to our docs without speaking to us, and within 10 to 20 minutes was basically building exactly what he wanted to build. So he just said that on Monday, and I thought that was like the highest credit of testament. So that's on the LayerZero side.
Hold on. I got to tell you, I've had other developers tell us the same thing in separate conversations. So that is just not one testimony. That is a thread of testimonies we've heard here at the Cross-Chain Coalition. So congrats to LayerZero for making it dumb and easy to get going.
Amazing. I absolutely love to hear it. On the Stargate side, the goal of Stargate was always that, hey, listen, we want to make we like you said, we want it to feel like magic, this inventory abstraction. We don't want somebody to need to go, hey, I'm a DEX or I'm a yield aggregator and whatever, and like I just want to do swap and swap. Like that's my core that I'm focused on, and like those are the things that I've already built. I don't want to have to deal with all this gas and this bridging in the middle and everything else. So the goal of Stargate was wrap those two contracts that you have, compose Stargate, and you're done. So like we put out a demo back in November-ish that basically was this swap. Like we had always envisioned this happening eventually, and I think we modeled it after what Sushi was doing and saying, hey, this would be like a perfect fit. And when we released that demo, I think the original Sushi integration side was less than 30 lines of code, which is insane if you think about it. And so like that was always the goal. So the goal should be as easy as possible to build on both, as easy as possible to compose Stargate. But we're super hands-on. So if anybody wants to build, pop in to Discord, pop into Telegram, and just like ping me or any of us, and we chat with devs all day on this.
That's awesome. Oxmaki, I'm a dev. I love working and want to build new natives using Sushi now with cross-chain magic. Is there a path for me to interact with, or is there a path or a line of sight where I could start?
So far things are a little bit too early to kind of have any resources for dev building on top of Sushi itself, SushiSwap. But I mean, it's probably something that's going to be coming along like fairly quickly once like everything is settled down and so on. Like right now, like the initial kind of testing phase, quote unquote, like the first week, 2 weeks were a little bit kind of harder for the team. So now like things are like modulating, things are stable and so on. So afterwards, like it's going to be easier. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right. Switching to the next, let's talk about, the news and the thread and what's happening in our industry. Okay. So Nomad, Bridge, initialization bug, smart contract, cause a loss of about 190 million. Great team. James Prestwich has been one of the, if not leading developers in our space for years. We love him. Nomad's a great team. How do we now keep security? Like, what's the thought about security in this new world in which, simple errors like these or simple issues can become now big impacts on Bridge and Bridge technology? And how does the LayerZero SushiSwap relationship sort of look at this particular problem? What's your position?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think what it comes down to is almost all of these other systems building, they're really building messaging services, not messaging protocols. And I think that's a big issue. So while like the Nomad thing was a initialization error, if you actually, so we really dug into a lot of this post hack and just said, all right, what the heck was really going on here? And all of this was basically like the contract was fully upgradable. The updater has the ability to update the amount of time the watchers need to wait to 0 seconds and just atomically rug everything in a single transaction. Like there were all these risk vectors that you would never, ever, ever build into any pure protocol. And so I still think everybody is approaching these things as messaging services, not protocols. The goal from LayerZero from day one was when we launch, if our team is 100% malicious, if our team is, disappears from the face of the earth, it doesn't matter what happens to us. LayerZero, the protocol, will persist forever. Anybody else can run an Oracle and relayer. Anybody else can continue that. There is no reliance. And I think that's a big difference between service and protocol. In almost all of these others, there is complete reliance on the team operating. If that team shuts down, if that team decides to rug through the upgradable contracts, through whatever. And I think there's just too much risk. There's too much surface for that. I think the goal should be to build something that is able to basically exist without the team at all. And I think there are just too many things that are being done in the space. And, this is the nth hack. And this, every single one, people make an excuse as why it was a different reason. I don't think we've even seen a real validation layer hack. Like, okay, I guess Ronin was, but that's not like really what happened. It was just like a poor design that then you have this, external component. And so, like, it's not even yet that the validation layers are failing. And some of these validation layers are not perfect. But a lot of it is that there's just too much surface in the way that they're being designed. And they're being designed in a way that the team has far, far, far too much control in my opinion. And so I think, like, it's the Nomad stuff sucks. It really sucks. It's just like a brutal, every single one of these has been a brutal situation. But I think the big thing is really comes down to the way that it is being architected. I think we need to architect for open systems. We need to architect for systems that are not reliant on a single team. And now with everything that's happening around regulation, everything else, I think it's more important than ever to do that, right? That if you're giving an avenue where you can be told to censor, where you can be told to shut down the protocol, those things are going to happen eventually. And so I think one of the biggest things is it really comes down to just the way this stuff is built in general. Right.
So, Brian, you're saying you're a no for upgradable proxy contracts. Did I get you?
Very much so.
Right. And we agree. Upgradable contracts that can be controlled by a team, very, very risky, very dangerous. And we really want to think, we agree about the surface area. And we like what you're saying, where protocols should exist apart from the team. You want your protocols to continue to exist and to be used, which leads to the next question. Now, this week, we have blacklisting of Tornado Cash. Roman, Tornado Cash founder, knew him very well. He's, I don't know where he's these days, but these guys, created a service, not a protocol. Now, how is a protocol like LayerZero impacted by blacklisted USDC addresses? Is this now a problem that folks who have, tainted USDC cannot route through LayerZero and Sushi? Or is it, hey, it's a protocol, we don't control it, people do what they will, it continues without us?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different components here, right? Stargate is an application that was built on top of LayerZero. Stargate has a UI. The UI does everything that needs to be compliant. It blocks all the stuff on the front end. It does all the front end things, and akin to Uniswap or everybody else who's trying to be compliant with this. LayerZero as a protocol it's a library of smart contracts that lives on chain. We cannot change it. We cannot do it. We can publish new validation libraries. So somebody who wants to point to the new one can point to it, but we can never change any of the old. Anybody can point to the old. Anybody can persist. We cannot stop anybody from running a relayer. We cannot stop anybody from running an Oracle. We cannot control the shape of these systems, what they look like, what they partake in. All of that is completely outside of our control, and that cannot change. So from that side, we have absolutely zero control over what applications build, over how those messages are moved, any of that.
But LayerZero still depends on Chainlink as the number one oracle, as one of many oracles?
Yeah, so we have defaults, right? Because again, one thing we think about a lot is, hey, how do we make the developer experience as easy as possible? So just like this gas abstraction, if somebody doesn't want to do the gas abstraction, they don't need to do it. It's something that's offered to them. If somebody does not want to think, which to be fair is like 99% of developers building right now, if somebody just says, I want to just build some contracts and have them send messages to each other, I don't really want to like think of how to do this or run any of these components or go out and source who I think is the best person to sort of run each of these, then they don't need to. They just build a contract, and the dev experience is like, just focus on building and like worry about all that stuff later. You can change that whenever you feel like you want to change that. And so for that, there are defaults, but nobody is forced into them, and anybody can change them at any time. And I think that's the important thing.
Yep.
You still got to build a system that people can use and is useful and they want to build on top of.
Yep.
But you want to give the underlying like modularity. Always give people the lever of choice.
That's right. Maki, any thoughts from you on the topic of security and continuation?
I think it's, like nothing new in my opinion. We knew that basically like DeFi and so on is an adversarial kind of financial battleground, and everyone is just gonna keep on going tested and basically attacked from all sides. Right now, like this is not our first kind of bridge act that we see in the wild. There's been Ronin, Wormhole, and so on. I think they're gonna keep happening until we have like really like a few remaining. And hopefully like Stargate is set for success. We're making sure we have like something that Brian actually didn't touch on is we're actually like leveraging like Certora and formal verification to make sure that all of our smart contracts are like on top of the game. And this is actually also happening on Sushi side, Aave, Compound. This is like very important and key to me in my opinion. It does put a lot of strain on the engineering team and so on. It takes a lot of effort to write all these rules, but it is one added step that very few other protocol are basically like leveraging to make sure that everything is safe, secure, and sound.
Understood.
We also happen to have the largest bounty in the world on both LayerZero and a Stargate independently at $15 million bug bounty on each of them.
Oh, man, now you're going to send me reading. $15 million. Well, I think that's a testament to the immense work that you guys have put into your code. And I know that, LayerZero has made it really easy. So I know a lot of devs are working through your stuff. And if they find stuff, they'll share it. The more accessible you make it, the more feedback you get on the code base. So congrats to LayerZero for doing this. And of course, congrats to Sushi for the partnership and leveraging Stargate and LayerZero tech. All right, last question before we jump. Any alpha that you want to share with the cross-chain coalition audience that they should expect next 3 months, 6 months?
Maki is a well of alpha, so I don't know if a minute's going to be long enough for him. I will quickly say that we're going to be very, very active in the Aptos, Solana, and Sui environments soon. Expect that from us. So on top of everything else we're doing, and a couple of huge integrations coming, expect that to be a new playground very soon.
Excellent. Maki, any hot alpha from you that we should check?
I mean, kind of Primo just touched on it. I think, like very few, at the moment, very few kind of bridges are really active in the non-EVM. And that was one of the main kind of concern for me when I was looking at all the solutions. The moment, like, we are able to bring this wonderful experience to like other like non kind of EVM chain, that's going to be awesome. And I think it's going to really cement kind of Stargate as like, a one-stop stop. So yeah, I think that's the all the alpha I have today, sadly.
Awesome. I think it's great alpha. We're going non-EVM, and we got a lot of announcements coming. And the Sui Aptos hotness is all move, and we're excited for it as well. All right, just checking with the community. We have a chance for one question. We got a chance for one question, so I'm not sure if Cross-Chain Coalition has seen anybody with any questions. We'll just check. Do we have any questions?
We actually do from Hyperdrive. Does Hyperdrive, are they willing to ask their question? I'm going to queue them up really fast. 1 second.
My question is, so when there's a cross-chain transfer, how does the second chain sort of understand that there's been a transfer, that there's a new token? Like, how does the second chain, is there a transaction on the second chain? Or is the relayer bring the proof and that's enough for the second chain? Or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in the contract, so what all messaging gets you, what LayerZero gets you, is basically arbitrary contract invocation with a bytes array. So like a packet on the internet, you've got like two computers sitting around and you're like sending a message across to them. So you're doing some computation on the first and some computation on the second. So on the source chain, you write a transaction to the chain. Now the contract there that's interacting with this can do a bunch of things. It can have burned a token. It can have locked a token. It can be like Stargate, where you add on one side and subtract from the other. But let's say we're doing burn and mint. So you burn on chain A and you burn 1,000 tokens. That state then gets broken up into two pieces. So the block header, which has the receipts route, the transaction proof, those get moved to the destination chain. They both get submitted to the destination chain. You do the Merkle inclusion walk of that proof directly on chain, assuming that it's a valid transaction. Then you pass the payload onto the destination contract, and in this case, the destination contract mints 1,000 tokens. But really, you just have an action on chain B, an action on chain A, and you need to bring some receipt or proof of the thing that has happened on chain A.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep, of course.
All right, and that is it for us. Thank you so much, Brian Primo. Thank you, XMaki. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hyperdrive, for the great question. How do you attest that the transaction has occurred on target chain after initiation on source chain? Ooh, this was an amazing. We'd love to have another one in the future as, of course, Sushi continues to expand across the multi-chain, and of course, as LayerZero continues to expand across the EVMs and more, way past the EVMs. Thanks to the Cross-Chain Coalition. Thank you to our sponsors, Curve, Volume, as well as Paloma. Thank you to the community. Everyone have a great week ahead. Stay safe in the multi-chain world, and we look forward to seeing you out there. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us. See ya.
Thank you.